Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Transfer Express webinar, Why Screen Print When You Can Heat Print the Custom Transfer Advantage. My name is Andy Curtis. I am the Learning and Development Manager here at Transfer Express, and I am happy to be joining you. It might be a little bit gloomy outside here in Ohio today. Hopefully it's nicer where you're at, but you know what? I guess we shouldn't complain because it's not snowing anymore. The winter seems to be over here, so I guess I can't complain, right? I hope it's beautiful where you're at, and I hope everyone's ready to learn. I am looking forward to bringing this webinar to you today. Again, it's Why Screen Print When You Can Heat Print. Now, we're using our webinar software just a little bit differently today. So hopefully this means we're going to get some interaction. I know if you joined me last month, we had a little bit of an issue with not seeing some of your chat boxes, but I see everybody's chat boxes now, and I look forward to talking to all of you as we go through the webinar today. If you have joined me before, and I recognize some of the names out there, thank you guys for coming back. If you've joined me before, then you know the deal is that I will talk to you for about the next 45 to 60 minutes. We're going to cover a lot of information as usual. If you have questions, we encourage you to type them into the chat box. I am going to try to answer your questions as well as we go, of course, but I know you guys can be talkative sometimes, and if I miss your questions, then I have an assistant behind the curtain who will be typing answers into the chat box there, so make sure to keep an eye on it if you do ask a question. If for some reason we don't get back to you or we miss your question, then we will be responding to you via email after the presentation is over. And as usual, we are recording the presentation, so there will be a video available at transferexpress.com when we're finished, and of course slides in a PDF format if need be, and that kind of thing. So that being said, again, welcome everybody to Why Screen Print When You Can Heat Print the Custom Transfer Advantage. We're going to start talking here in a second. I just want to point out that this is going to be a great webinar for everybody, hopefully. I want everyone to understand that before we start here, I am by no means slamming screen printing. So I hope nobody thinks that we're about to spend 45 minutes talking about how terrible screen printing is, because that's certainly not the case. The idea of this webinar is actually, why should you be the one doing the screen printing when we can do it for you? That's the idea behind this webinar. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So first and foremost, what is screen printing? This is a topic that we love here at Transfer Express, and I get to cover this topic with our new employees. Anytime we have somebody new start here, we of course have to cover what is screen printing? What is the idea? Screen printing is a technique that pushes plastisol ink through a mesh. Now, what you're looking at in the photograph here, for those of you who are unfamiliar, and this is where it'd be nice if we were all in a classroom and I could see a raise of hands as to who was new to the industry. But for those of you who are new, who haven't seen this before, what we're looking at in the picture is a metal framed screen with some red ink in it, and looks like somebody's got a squeegee and they're about ready to start printing. The screen is treated with a chemical called emulsion. Emulsion is a light-sensitive chemical that when exposed to light, it hardens. So the trick is to prepare your screen with emulsion and make it so that some areas of the screen don't actually harden and some do, so that when you push the ink through the screen, the ink goes where you want it to go. And bear in mind, when we do say screen, when you hear screen printing, we really are talking about a mesh screen. Now, you can't think like your back door or like your window, a screen over your window. The holes are not nearly that big. When we talk screen printing, screens and mesh and all that good stuff, we're talking about holes that are so tiny you don't see them with the naked eye generally. So that's what we're talking about when we say screen printing. But the whole concept here is you've got a screen. It's been treated with a light-sensitive chemical that's made some parts of the screen harden, and when you put plastisol ink on it, the ink goes where you want it to go in the shape of letters, numbers, and artwork. So all it takes is just a squeegee, some pressure on that screen, and the plastisol ink forms the design. So that is what screen printing is in a very fast nutshell. So how does this pertain to what we're talking about? Well, there's two ways to accomplish screen printing. You can do it yourself directly with screen printing equipment, or you can screen print using a heat press and screen printed transfers. Now, and over the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about why you would want to do that, what the benefits are, what's the difference between the two. Now, screen printing is one of those things it's a fantastic art form. It's been around for, believe it or not, for hundreds and hundreds of years in some form or another. It started by the Chinese many years ago. And it's an art form that has evolved a lot over time. But the catch to screen printing, as we're going to talk about today, the catch is that it's a little bit messy. It's got a lot of a learning curve. It's not cheap to get into, and there are some definite ceilings that you hit when you consider buying screen printing equipment, especially when you consider that instead of buying expensive equipment, you only need a heat press. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on here. So there's two ways you can screen print. You can do it yourself by hand with screen printing equipment, having made that purchase, having made that investment, having learned all the ins and outs, or you can screen print using a heat press. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty here. So the investment. Now, keep in mind, these are some rough numbers. On the left-hand side here, you see an investment into screen printing equipment. Now, what people don't always understand when they start thinking, oh, I want to buy screen printing equipment. I want to buy my own screen printing equipment. I want to do my own screen printing t-shirts. I'm going to buy my own stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. You're not just buying a printing press. You're buying a flash dryer. You're buying carts to store the screens. You're buying the screens themselves, the degreaser, the ink, the scoop coaters, the tape. You're buying the washout bins to reclaim the screens. You're buying the chemicals that break down the inks and the emulsion afterwards. You're buying the emulsion itself. There's a lot of money that goes into investing in buying screen printing equipment. Oh, and the flash dryer too. How could I forget the flash dryer? And even more. There's even more stuff. I'm naming things off the top of my head here. So on the left-hand side, you see an example of an investment into screen printing equipment, $16,000. Now, of course, if you go online, you're going to find screen print equipment for more than that, for less than that. What we're doing here is just showing you an example of a good median range. This is new screen printing equipment from a reputable place to purchase it from, $16,000. On the other hand, if you don't want to go buy all the screen printing equipment, and mind you, we're talking about sheer investment right now. We're not talking about any of the other bits and pieces. Sheerly price, that screen printing equipment costs you $16,000. On the other hand, if you don't want to pay $16,000 for screen printing equipment, a heat press can cost you as low as $1,500, if not lower, depending on what type of heat press you purchase. So right there, right off the bat, when we're comparing screen printing to heat printing, to using a heat press, right off the bat, you've got a $14,500 difference in investment alone. So this is something to consider, if nothing else, the fact that screen printing is a very expensive process to get into. So aside from the expense of getting into screen printing, even once you've made the investment and you've paid the money, the next thing is the fact that screen printing is incredibly messy. Screen printing is one of those things that you can always tell how new somebody is at it based on the mess on their person. When we have new people start here at Transfer Express and we take them through the printing department, we always joke that the main rule is you can't touch anything back in the printing department because there's ink everywhere. You will get messy. It will get all over the place. And of course, I myself, having gotten to spend time back in the printing department and having gotten to spend time with the screen printers, it's always funny how ink ends up everywhere. I mean, you don't even know it's on you, and then you smear it all over the place, and before you know it, you've ruined a pair of pants and a shirt, and it's all over your face. Screen printing is a big mess. And even if you get beyond the messiness of ink, even if you get beyond that, there's a practicality thing that people don't tend to realize, that there's the mess it creates in your facility, but there's also the cleanup of screen print. You can't use just soap and water to get plastisol ink off. It doesn't work that way, especially when you're cleaning the screen. So you've made a screen, you've printed a shirt or printed a group of shirts. Now you're done with that screen. You don't throw the screen out, and you can't simply just hose the screen down. There's chemicals, there's cleaning solutions that need to be applied to break down the ink and break down the emulsion. And then you have to degrease the screen too. So The point is there's a lot of mess and there's a lot of water and there's a lot of big open spaces needed if you're going to screen print yourself. To where on the other side here, we've got a picture of a gentleman who's doing some heat printing. It's an easy home business. There is no mess involved. You seriously just take the heat press you just purchased for only $1,500 and you plug it in. And that's the end of it. You can do the heat printing in your garage. You can do it in your home. You can do it in a store. The heat printing literally is something you can do everywhere. So there is no mess associated. The only cleanup when you're doing heat printing is throwing away the piece of paper you just peeled the transfer off of. So there's a massive difference when we're talking about the difference between how messy screen printing is versus how messy transfers are. They're not messy at all. All right, we've also got learning curve. It's one of those bluntly honest points that when you look at screen printing, when you're considering screen printing, there is a huge learning curve. There is a lot to learn in the screen printing process. It is not something you're going to pick up in a day or 2 days. It is something that you perfect over time. There's coating screens, burning screens, setting up the presses, the actual printing process, curing the inks, cleanup. And on top of all of that, it's figuring out how to do those things the right way, because each one of those topics, from coding a screen to cleaning up a screen, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. And doing it the wrong way can be a massive waste of your time and your money. So the learning curve for screen printing is intense. To where on the other side here, we've got the learning curve for transfers. You position the piece of paper, you press the transfer, and you peel it. My favorite example of this, my favorite example of all time, I have a younger sister. Several years ago, I opened my big mouth and I told her karate instructor I would totally make t-shirts and sweatshirts for her karate class. And I figured, hey, it's a karate class for kids. How many of these are we really going to make up? Well, surprise, surprise, they ended up wanting 200 t-shirts and hoodies total. And they didn't just want something on the front, they wanted something on the back, and then they wanted something on the muff pocket of the hoodies too. So I bit off way more than I could chew. I decided, you know what, I am going to get my sister involved. She was young enough at the time that she wasn't working, but old enough that she could work a heat press. And at 14 years old, she had no problem loading that heat press up with a shirt, with a transfer, and pressing it. We took a couple minutes just to show her how to use the heat press and to show her how to line up, so there was a nice point of reference so she understood how she was lining the transfers up on there and how she was putting the shirts on there. It only took a couple minutes total, and before I knew it, me on my heat press and her on her heat press, we banged those out real fast. So the learning curve on transfers is such that anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. It's very quick and easy to learn. You'll make a couple mistakes. Of course, everyone has that moment where they accidentally put a transfer on upside down. They accidentally have the ink facing up and the transfer sticks to the upper platen instead of sticking to the shirt. Anybody ever had that happen before? I'm sure there's enough out of you guys out there in listening land. You guys have done that before, put a transfer on upside down. The way to fix that, for those of you who have done that, is you just take warm water, just a damp washcloth, and you can literally turn the press off, let it start to cool down a tiny bit. You don't want it all the way cool, but while the press is cooling down, you can take that damp washcloth and you can literally wipe the ink right off the upper platen. If you're one of those people that like to be really careful, you can use a little bit of dish detergent, but totally not necessary. Oh, David, many times. Yep, see, I understand completely. That's the closest thing to a learning curve you have with transfers. Though that's the closest kind of mistake you're going to make. And when you think about it, is it annoying that you got to wipe your press off? Sure, that's annoying. But the learning curve for screen printing is incredibly more difficult than just accidentally pressing a transfer upside down. If you don't coat your screens right, then you're going to have ink going through places that it shouldn't go through. There's going to be pinholes, and you're going to get ink going in places it shouldn't be. If you don't burn your screens correctly, there's all sorts of problems that can happen if they're underexposed, overexposed. If your press isn't set up right, you could have crooked T-shirts, crooked prints on T-shirts. Curing ink, gosh, if you don't cure your ink correctly, then it's going to be smeared and it's going to be under-cured, rather. That's what would happen. Over-cured, you could have it cracking right off the shirt. There's so many learning curves involved in the screen printing process. to where one of the worst things that you can do for transfers is just accidentally stick one upside down, and then you got to take 5 minutes to wipe the platen off. So that's just one example of what I'm talking about. So let's talk about one of the other advantages to doing heat printing, multicolor printing. So in the picture here, you've got an example of Hidden Hills or Hidden Hollows. I can't quite read that, sorry. Hidden Hills, I believe. It's a two-color design is the point here. We've got a two-color design that's like a dark blue and a Columbia blue. Now, if you're going to screen print this design, you're going to have to burn two separate screens, a dark blue screen and a light blue screen. So you got to go through and you got to lay your shirts out on the press. You got to print all the dark blue first, and you got to cure it partially. Then you got to go through and put the shirts back on the press, and then you got to get the light blue screen out, and then you got to register it correctly. That's one of the big problems with multicolor. That's one of those things that nobody likes to do, is registering the screens. After you've printed that dark blue, you got to print that light blue, but you got to print it perfectly in the same spot. So you have to register all the, oh my gosh, it takes forever to do. To where if you're doing screen printed transfers instead, we send you both colors on one sheet of paper. That Hidden Hills design is, you can literally see it being peeled off of the paper there in the picture. So there was no registering multiple colors. All you needed to do was stick the shirt on the press and press the transfer. That's it. So wham, bam, done. Very simple stuff. So multicolor printing is worlds easier when you're using transfers as opposed to screen printing. And that's not to say that there's not nice screen printing equipment available that makes things like registration easier, but you're paying more for that. And that goes back to that investment point that I was making earlier, that you're making a much larger investment to buy the equipment that makes it easier to register. And then there's the learning curve still. So there's a lot involved. All right, so numbering. We all have situations where numbers are an issue, where somebody wants you to number something for them, be them a sports team or be they something else, that there's a chance for you to get business in numbering. If you're going to screen print numbers on jerseys or t-shirts, whatever it is, if you're going to screen print numbers, that is going to be a giant pain. Okay, you have to screen print each digit individually. You have to screen print each color individually. In the photograph on the right-hand side, you have somebody who's doing just a single digit number 1 on the back of that t-shirt. It literally took that person as much time as they needed to stick the shirt on the press, put the piece of paper, the transfer, put it down on the shirt. They pressed it for literally 4 seconds, and then they were done. Peel and finished. The screen printing on the left-hand side, you've got all those numbers on one screen. You have to stick your shirt on the platen. You have to scoot the platen over to the number you need. You got to somehow line it up. You have to be very careful, because if you screw it up, you ruin the shirt. Then you've got to go back and do the second color after that. It's not an easy process to screen print numbers. Is it possible? Absolutely. But is screen printing them the way to go? Absolutely not. Doing the heat printed, screen printed transfers are the much easier way to do numbering. I defy you to find an easier way to do it. And actually, Leslie Swinson brings up a fantastic point here in her question. Heat transfers are good on cotton, but on performance fabrics, I thought there were issues. You know what, Leslie? That would have been the case years ago, but not anymore. No. If you're doing numbers on performance fabrics, we have a specific type of number that will handle that. See, the problem that Leslie's getting at here is that performance fabrics are heat sensitive. It's not like a piece of cotton or a piece of normal polyester dazzle. A performance fabric is heat sensitive, and when you heat press it, you run the risk of leaving a big square on the performance fabric. I'm sure everybody's had that happen before. Again, if we were in a classroom, I'm sure I'd get a lot of hands raised right now. On the other side, though, instead of worrying about having those heat-sensitive issues with the performance fabrics, we have a product called ElastiPrint. The ElastiPrint numbers are pressed at 275 degrees, and they do not scorch the performance fabrics. So it's the same ease of use. You can do your performance fabrics, your Under Armours, your all of the different, gosh, there's so many out there of the polyester performance stuff. you can totally use the ElastiPrints and not worry about burning that stuff. So, okay, so the point here being that screen printing numbers is a long, arduous process that is not easy. It is very time consuming. And if you've never had a chance to use the screen printed numbers, give us a call, ask us for some samples, and play with them. I guarantee you personally, you will not find an easier way to do numbers. All right. Screen printing advantages. Another one to talk about is price. It is going to be very cost effective to use screen printed transfers. The catch that people seem to have, the learning curve here, is realizing that when you're printing transfers, when you're having us print transfers for you, we're printing onto a piece of paper. This piece of paper is 11 and a quarter by 14. So when you're screen printing, when you're having us screen print transfers, it behooves you to use as much of that piece of paper as possible. On the left-hand side there, you see everyone's favorite way of doing baseball jerseys is the classic script and tail design: Tiger softball, Cardinal softball, Indian softball. Notice we got all three of those designs on one sheet of paper. All those designs on one sheet of paper. Now, the only downside is you got to cut those by hand because we kind of stuck the tail from Tigers descends in near that C in Cardinals, so you can't use a cutting board. You're going to have to do it by hand. But you just saved a lot of money because you've got three different teams on that one piece of paper: the Tigers, the Cardinals, and the Indians. So if you were to purchase 20 sheets of that order, you're getting 20 Tigers, 20 Cardinals, 20 Indians. Saves you a whole bunch of money over screen printing. Think about this for a second. If you screen printed those baseball teams, you're going to have to burn a screen for the Tigers, burn a screen for the Cardinals, burn a screen for the Indians. You have to reclaim those screens. You have all the chemicals and all the supplies necessary to make and to reclaim those screens. On top of all of the effort, it's it's a lot of money. It's a heck of a lot of money that goes into screen printing. On the right hand side, you see the same idea. Here, where we've got, instead of a bunch of big ones, we've got one big design for Tongeist Karaoke, but then we've done three small heart sizes along the side. And what's nice about those is you can cut those off and use those for left chests. You can use them for hats. You can use them for mouse pads, for tote bags, for all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of ways to get your price advantage using the screen printed transfers as opposed to the screen printing. All right. No weeding. This is a beautiful thing. When you're using screen printed transfers, they come to you ready to go. There is no extra preparation you have to do. You don't have to weed anything. You don't have to peel anything off of the paper. You literally, when you order screen printed transfers, you stick the shirt on the press, you put the transfer down, you press it, you peel, you're done. When you're doing any kind of cutting, any kind of vinyl cutting, the weeding process can be difficult. Now, of course, there's all sorts of great Stalls products out there these days, Easy Weed and stuff, that does make the weeding process easier. But the point that we're making here is that it's still an extra production process. We have a viewer who's weeding as we speak, who's listening to the webinar as he weeds. There you go. There's multitasking for you. But the point is, weeding is one of those processes that takes time. It might not be difficult, and there's products that are easy to weed, but it's a time-consuming thing. It takes time out of your day. It takes time out of your schedule. After you finish cutting, you got to sit there and weed the product. To where when you do screen printed transfers, there is no weeding involved. On the right-hand side of the slide, you see a picture of some names, starting with Anderson there and Schilling underneath. Those are our express names here at Transfer Express. Those are screen-printed names that come on strips of paper that you don't have to weed. You tell us the name, we print it, we cut it, we send it to you, and it's done. So names are one of those things that, not even just names, but screen-printed in general, screen printed transfers really make this whole thing easier when we're talking about not doing any weeding. All right. So screen printing advantage ink only where you want it to go, and they can go on any color. So one of the other things we see people do is the inkjet printing. Inkjet printing is one of those things that you don't. It's got its place. It's a useful system to some people for some very limited kinds of orders. But there's problems when you use the inkjet printing process. First of all, when you do inkjet printing, the paper you're putting into your printer is basically a piece of paper that's covered in adhesive. It doesn't hurt your printer, but the point that I'm making is when you take that 8x10 piece of paper and load it into your printer, that's an 8x10 sheet of adhesive. So after you've printed it, even on the nicest printer, even on the greatest laser printer, inkjet printer, what the problem is when you take that laserjet inkjet piece of paper and you put it on the shirt and you heat press it, all of the adhesive from the paper is coming off onto the shirt. Now, sure, you could take that piece of paper and cut it down with an X-Acto knife, but again, we're talking about a time constraint here. We're talking about a lot of effort. So, in addition to this, a lot of those inkjet transfers, a lot of those inkjet papers you can purchase, they only go on white. And of course, there are those out there that do say they can go on colors, and they do, but it's never quite as good as genuine screen printing. Screen printing, you don't have to worry about the color of the garment. You don't have to worry about it going in other places. When we send you a transfer, the ink on the paper is the only thing that comes off the paper. There is no additional adhesive. There is no additional stuff that's coming off of there. And you can do it on any color you want. As you can see the picture on the side there, we're showing you how you can put transfers on any color garment. Now, of course, you have to be careful. We talked about a minute ago about how the performance fabrics can be heat sensitive. So again, you can press on those without worrying about colors as well. You just need to make sure you're using the right product and always tell representatives that, hey, I'm using performance wear, and make sure we get you the right stuff. But the point is, regardless of what you're using, you don't have to worry about garment colors when you're doing screen printed transfers. We can print on anything out there. This is another great point. This is something that people don't oftentimes consider. One of the advantages to screen printed transfers is easy fill-ins. Okay. Oftentimes it's expensive to order between the price breaks. That's why we have the price breaks we do here at Transfer Express. For example, you need 32 shirts for a family reunion. Okay, 32 shirts. The price break we have is at 35. Now your first reaction might be, well, I don't need 35, I need 32. It's always a good thing to get extra pieces. This is another one of those topics. I'm sure if I asked all of you, how many of you have had a customer come in at the last minute and go, oh gosh, I actually need 2 more? It happens all the time. Customers do this to us all the time. And it's just, this is life. This is how it goes. The baseball team decides at the last minute to add little Timmy to the lineup, and now we need another jersey. Or there's a contingency from the family who weren't going to come to the reunion, and oh, surprise, at the last minute, we are going to come through. So the fact is, people are always coming to us having the necessity for more pieces than they initially said. And because of the price breaks we offer here at Transfer Express, it's easy for you. To go ahead and print extra pieces or have extra pieces that you can print when they walk in. So in the example that I gave you, you needed 32 pieces. We had you order 35 for the price break. So you've got 3 extra pieces. Now, when that family comes in and says, oh gosh, we have to add 2 more people, you've got extra pieces. You can literally whip those up real fast, and you don't have to charge them an arm and a leg like a screen printer would. Let's put this to a screen printer's perspective. If you walk into a screen print shop, or if any of you guys out there in listing land are screen printers, when someone walks into your shop and says, hey, I need 2 more pieces, that's horrific. It can be completely impossible. If your schedule is jam-packed, or if you reclaim those screens already, you'd have to burn more screens. And God forbid it's more than just one color. You got to burn a lot of extra screens for only 2 extra pieces. So your choice is to turn the customer down, or to charge them an arm and a leg, or to absorb the cost yourself, which is certainly not business intelligent. So one of the things that's great about transfers is the ability to take those extra transfers and store them. And I'm surprised nobody's asked so far, so I'm just going to throw it out here, that transfers can be stored stored for a long time? This is one of those questions that usually somebody will ask me here during the webinar is, how long can transfers be stored for? How long can I hang on to those extras? My favorite example of this is I have transfers, and if you've joined me before during these webinars, you've probably heard me tell this story, so forgive me. But I have transfers under my desk that are from 9/11, that are from the Twin Towers disaster. We printed up some transfers of the Statue of Liberty, and I thought they were the coolest thing in the world. I was 18 years old. I bought a bunch of those transfers, and I stuck them under my desk thinking that I would use all of them. Well, I have a whole bunch of them still under my desk to this day. About a year ago, I pulled one of them out and pressed it, and lo and behold, this transfer that's 13, 14 years old at the time worked just fine. You have to be careful. You have to make sure that you're using the right time and temperature, and you have to make sure your transfers are stored in a climate-controlled, cool, dry environment. But they do last a good long time. So these easy fill-ins are a great way to use screen printed transfers in the best way possible. Another idea to throw out to all of you, if you joined us about a month ago, we did a webinar where we talked about a bunch of different business ideas, one of them being school spirit shops, schoolwear. This is a great point for schools too, because they can print up 250 transfers, have a bunch of blank shirts, and as kids come to purchase at the school bookstore, the bookstore can press the shirts as they're ordered, and there's no waste of inventory or anything. Okay, so the next topic here. Oh, we're gonna have to wear our shirts, Dolores. We need to get a picture together. All right. So screen printed transfers have an advantage over durability as well. There are so many things that can happen during the screen printing process when you're trying to do your own direct screen printing. There are so many things that can affect the durability of the final product. How long it stays on the shirt, how long before it cracks, how long before it starts to fade, or any of those things happen. There are so many factors that go into it. And one of the best things about having transfers printed, especially at some place like Transfer Express here, is that our products are quality tested and our processes are set in stone. We're doing the same thing every time. All of our products are independently wash tested through 50 wash, 50 dry cycles with no sign of wear. And that's just a 50 wash and dry test. I like to joke that I've been with the company for almost 15 years, and I have a closet full of Transfer Express products at home. I fully admit it. And there are transfers, shirts that I have that are years and years old that I can pull out of the closet and wear tomorrow and look fantastic. So we do independently test 50 wash and dry cycles, but they definitely last longer than that. Speed is another big thing here. So when you order transfers from us, a one color order ships the same day if you order it by 11 a.m. One color out the same day if ordered by 11 a.m. if it's one of our stock designs. Our ship dates are guaranteed. We don't ever change. If it's busy season and things are crazy, we're not going to tell you, oh, you know what? It's usually one day, but we're going to do two. Doesn't work that way. Our ship dates are always guaranteed. They're set in stone. If we need to call in third shift people and we need to print over the weekend to make sure your order gets out on time, then lo and behold, that's what will happen. A good question coming in from the chat here to Tavia, but do they last as long as direct screen printing? And the answer is yes. Screen printed transfers will last the life of the garment. I have shirts that have fallen apart before the transfer has. So absolutely yes, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Back to speed here though. And of course, here at Transfer Express, we offer free upgraded shipping. We do ship 2-day shipping to anywhere in the United States at the cost of UPS ground. So we can guarantee 2-day delivery to you no matter where you're at in the United States. We can guarantee 2-day delivery at the cost of ground. So that's a fantastic thing as well. Screen printers, we know that the process can be quick once you've gotten it down, once you've gotten a rhythm to things and you've gotten used to the processes. Screen printing can be a quick process too, but that goes back to that learning curve concept we talked about way back at the beginning. It takes a lot of time to get there, in addition to all the other things we discussed like cost and mess. Another advantage to Transfer Express, to using custom transfers like this, the free online artwork that we offer here at Transfer Express. It's an amazing thing. Artwork is something that we want to do for you. Now, I know there's probably some of you out there in the audience saying that, well, I'm an artist and I don't necessarily need that service, and I respect that completely. But I know there's plenty of you out there that are thinking to yourselves, well, I'm not an artist and I can't exactly afford an artist. This is where we come to play here at Transfer Express. You don't have to have screen printed artwork. We will provide it for you. We have an online designer at transferexpress.com that is accessible after you have joined the family and purchased a product. And the online designer offers you the ability to take any one of our over 5,000 designs and customize it right there in front of your eyes. It's almost like a junior design software. We basically took all that professional design software that you guys can imagine and boiled it down and put it on our website for you to use. We have over 5,000 layouts. We have over 5,000 pieces of clip art. It's an amazing cross-section of anything you could possibly imagine. We've got our artwork broken down by categories, from school to work to play to church to family reunions, anything you could possibly imagine. And we have a companion idea book available as well if you need the hard copy version of all of this. But it's an amazing thing. We are looking to make the artwork part of everything as easy for you as possible as well. So not only does Transfer Express want to be your screen printer, so you don't have to worry about the messy, expensive process, but the other expensive process of artwork, we want to be your artist also. And we'll do so at a very competitive rate. You'll find yourself saving a lot of money as opposed to buying Corel or hiring an artist. Whew, all right. Well, we hit just about the 40-minute mark, guys. The idea book, let's see here. Rebecca Neville is asking how much does the idea book cost? The nice spiral bound idea book, or rather binder bound idea book you saw in the picture there, is a $15 purchase, and it's customized with your company name. So that is a fantastic buy. And actually, the best buy that I can give you guys, though, I'll throw this out to everybody who's asking about samples and asking about the cost of the idea book. We have something called the marketing kit. I don't have it here on my slideshow, but the marketing kit gets you a idea book. It gets you display samples that are full-size samples, not small samples. It gets you a color selector that shows you all 76 of our colors I think we have now. It shows you pressing instructions. We have pressing instructions for all of our products. The marketing kit itself costs $49 plus the cost of shipping, and it is the best way to get all of the samples and the idea book and everything that everybody's asking for. So the marketing kit is a fantastic option. If you guys are interested in the marketing kit, feel free to give us a call at the phone number here on the slide, 800-622-2280. And our reps will be more than happy to talk you through the marketing kit. Or if you're looking to just order one of the $15 catalogs, we can help you out there too. But either way, I am wrapping up the webinar here. If any of you ever have any ideas for any future webinars, or if you want a copy of today's slides, feel free to email us, info@transferexpress.com. And please hit our blog. If you've never seen the Transfer Express blog before, please check it out. The blog has a lot of great information, has a lot of great stuff on it, and all these topics that we talk about on these webinars, we do cover them on the blog too. So it's a great way to get a lot of good information. So the next webinar that I'm going to be joining you all for is going to be May 14th, and that webinar will be 5 ways to grow your t-shirt business. This is going to be a fun one. Not that every webinar is not fun for me. I'm easily amused, but 5 ways to grow your t-shirt business. This is going to be a great webinar. There's going to be a lot of really fun information for everybody. I encourage everyone to write that one down on your schedule. 2 to 3 on May 14th. I hope everybody's, I saw a lot of questions pop up here, guys, and I see my friend behind the curtain here answering a lot of them. I tried to answer some of them. I hope everyone enjoyed the webinar. I hope you got some good information out of it. And of course, as always, if you have any input, feel free to shoot us an email, info@transferexpress.com. We love to hear from you. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a fantastic rest of your Thursday.